Pleasure to welcome Brian Windhorst in to discuss the finals. I'm going to fight the urge, Brian, to turn this into like a podcast, but I'm interested in your thoughts on so many different layers of this finals. And I just want to start with this. I believe the Boston Celtics have demonstrably proven in ways large and small that they're the best team in the NBA this season. I understand why Dallas has some folks kind of squinting to ask themselves, are they really? Is Boston really that now? What's your sense of the obstacle that the Dallas Mavericks now represent to an 18th banner for the Celtics?
Yeah, I wish it would be better television if I just said, no, I completely disagree with you, but I actually agree. I think not only were the Celtics dominant for 6 months of the regular season, I think for the most part they've been dominant in the playoffs. I know they've had a bad night or two, but, you know, it wasn't a free pass for them, and they pretty much handled their business all the way through. I am actually pretty stunned by the update that I saw this afternoon from ESPN Bet that 89% of the money that's come in has been on the Mavericks. Now, I guess that's partially because it's been a decade plus since there's been an opportunity to bet on a Western Conference team as an underdog. And there's only been 3 Western Conference teams that have been underdogs over the last 25 years. 2 of them the LeBron Heat teams. So I guess that's why they're looking at they're getting plus money on Dallas. But I think there's generally those bettors seem to be overlooking just how awesome the Celtics were throughout this entire regular season, where they won 64 games and historically were dominant. Statistically says they were historically dominant. And by the way, their statistical dominance has carried over to the postseason. Now, you can say that they were fortunate that they played teams that injured players, but for the most part, they blasted those teams. You know, they can't control who they play. They control how they handle those games. And also, they are a good matchup for against Dallas. What they do is going to give the Mavericks problems. They deploy 5 awesome offensive players for most of the time, and Dallas is going to have a harder time hiding their weaker defenders. So, in my view, Boston is appropriately favored in this series. It is going to, I think, be a good series, but Boston is the better team with home court advantage, with rest, and I just checked. Their injury report is clean. There's nobody on it, even with Porzingis. He's not even on the injury report.
I'm going to get to Porzingis in a minute, and I'm always hesitant to be in the business of asking you why other people think something. But I just wonder if your sense, Wendy, is this. We tend to just get bored, but I don't think we typically do this with great teams where we just kind of go, well, what else is there to talk about? This is the Boston Celtics, and I get that this is a league that traffics in drama, and then you had the Lakers and the Warriors that were in the back end. There were plenty of compelling storylines. It's just interesting to me how Boston was like, well, yeah, what else is there to talk about? Let's talk about Boston, man. If their stars play to their ceilings, I don't want to say it's a rout, but they win this series, correct?
Well, I highly respect that Dallas has won 3 series without having home court, and that they're 7-2 on the road in the postseason. I don't care what year you pick out. You do that, that's an incredible run. So you have to respect that. Also, the Kyrie Luka 1-2 punch has just been so impressive.
Agreed.
And so because you have 2 players like that who can, they go into the fourth quarter of a close game and they have complete confidence in both of them, and they're going to hit you with a double barrel, and that's hard to manage. And so because of that, I think they are an incredibly worthy and incredibly difficult opponent for Boston to have. But looking empirically at this, you go down the list, Boston really should be ahead in most categories, except for best player in the series. And that is where Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but Jason Tatum especially, has a golden moment here where he can really shove back on it. And I think it's interesting that he basically today admitted that he is expected to do that. That he does feel the pressure of being in that spot. That when you play for the Celtics, you are expected to do something special to raise your name up into that rafter with all those banners. So I actually think I was actually pretty impressed with the way he handled that today. So I'm anxious to see how he handles that challenge. But the having the best player a lot of times in the finals can be a difference maker, and that's one thing where Dallas has to be respected here.
Well, listen, in making all these points about Boston, in no way am I dismissive of Dallas, because this Wonder Twin superpower Kyrie-Luka duo, I mean, Luka has clearly become something more than he's been, and he was already a superstar. What must Boston do to mitigate his ability to potentially put his fingerprint on the Larry O'Brien and win his first title?
So one of the biggest stats I can say that I've studied walking into this series is that Luka, when he passes the ball, the Mavericks are shooting 57% on his shot.
Wow.
When he creates assist opportunity, 57%. Now, a big reason for that is that they are absolutely destroying teams with the lob. And a lob is a pretty, especially if it's an uncontested lob, is a pretty
right.
high percentage shot. But like the stat, again, this stat is again jaw-dropping. He has 8 lobs this playoffs from over 25 feet. So passes he's thrown from beyond the three-point line all the way back to 62 feet, I think, that have led to dunks. The most lobs other than the Mavericks are the Nuggets, who had 9 as a team. Luka
Wow.
has almost that same amount from 25 plus feet. And so the thing that Boston has to do is they've got to get that 57% number down. And there's a couple of different ways that you do that. One, you don't double team him as much, because what happened in this series against Minnesota, he was crushing. Minnesota threw double teams at him and he was picking them apart. And Boston doesn't double team. That's not how they became a top 5 defense, top 3 defense, whatever they finished. They don't double team. That's not something they do, and I don't think they would do it well. So they have to defend Luka in a way that doesn't require a double team. And secondly, they got to cut down on those lobs. You know, you're not going to eliminate them totally, but you can't give free, uncontested dunks off those lobs. So getting that 57% number down, because you know Luka is going to be awesome. The guy averaged 35 points in the regular season. Averaged 35 points, okay? So you've got to get that supporting number down if you're Boston. And Joe Mazzulla would probably say, we're going to just outscore him, because Joe often would see an advantage offensively. And if Luka's generating all that, we'll attack Luka. But Luka's defense has been a lot better. It is not just successful anymore to think that you're going to get back on him by going at him defensively. So they have got to make some of those scheme differences that can get that number down.
Legs actually did one of his famous touchscreens on Luka's defense, and when I told Luka that, his eyes got big. It was actually kind of a sweet moment. Like hard to impress a guy that's this kind of talent, but I think he was glad to hear that his defense got a little love.
It's hard to get Luka to smile about anything in press.
He was in a pretty good mood after one of his performances when he stopped by. Now, you mentioned the lob, and one way you could defend it is with the length of a guy like Porzingis. When he met with the media earlier in the week, he was pretty coy about what percentage and how much is he going to go. I want to know your expectation about what kind of availability you think he might have.
Yeah, I think the minute amount will be something we're going to watch tomorrow night, how much he can give. But just having Porzingis on the court is so important for the Celtics for a couple of reasons. Number one, he shoots long three-pointers. And I know that sounds strange to say, but he makes and takes a lot of three-pointers from above the break, top of the key, to the top sides of the wings. And that means to defend that, you got to come 20 to 25 feet out from the basket. And the Mavericks thrive with those two bigs, Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, protecting that rim. They gave all kinds of problems to the Wolves by blocking those shots. Porzingis is a threat to hit long threes. He shoots from the top of the key. And if you don't come out there to defend him, he gets a free shot. I don't care how you defend the pick and roll. That's one thing that just him out there, even if he's not effective, just him being out there makes a difference. The second thing is, as you said, he is 7'3". He will probably not, he will probably float defensively in such a way that he will be able to be a help defender. They don't want him in the pick and rolls, and I'm not going to excel talking X and O's like Legler does, but I do know that one of the things that he can do is be in position to float defensively, to come in and deal with those lobs. And for the last week, as the Celtics have been preparing here, I promise you, they've been working on ways to mitigate those lobs, and being 7'3" is a good place to start. He doesn't have to block 7 shots, but he has to be out there to be a deterrent. And if he's just a deterrent and a threat, then he will move the ball forward for the Celtics as he potentially plays back into rhythm.
I've done a terrible job not turning this into the podcast, but I wanted to ask you all the things I was interested in, and I'm going to close with this. My guy Stanford Steve was excited about the idea of something new here, and Dallas and Luka are that. But something old as well is on that Dallas team, and it's what they lean into, the experience of Kyrie. I just am interested in sort of his career arc, where he now is, the fact that Boston's in the way. I mean, as a writer, there's a lot that's pretty juicy right there. What's most interesting to you about all of it?
Well, so Kyrie is so highly regarded by his peers because of how skilled and he is. His sort of resume is a little choppy. He has a couple of All-NBA teams. He's had, a bunch of All-Star teams, but his performances, they've been a little bit uneven. If he is able to win and be a major factor in another playoff series or another finals series where he is on the underdog and he is able to be a part of that rising up and winning, I realize that the Celtics aren't the 2016 Warriors, but they are up there amongst the most statistically dominant teams of the last 30 or 40 years. Kyrie's resume takes another leap.
Exactly.
And the way he's playing right now, I'm not taking anything off the table. And so it's been a remarkable arc for him because in between playing with LeBron and playing with Luka, he played with all these stars in their prime MVPs, and it was like flat. But he can still do it here. He can bookend 2016 with 2024, and frankly, put that forward and say, "This is what I've done."
Yeah.
What can you say? And the honesty is, that period in between is problematic, but that would be a pretty powerful statement.
Well, I guess if we were to put the Cliff's Notes under this, I think we both believe Boston wins, but it sounds like we both feel like there's incredible, compelling content that's going to be wrapped up in the NBA Finals. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, but I would really be interested if Dallas, who's so good on the road, can take one of these two, maybe even game one, to bring back some of those Celtic demons. By the way, the Celtics are undefeated on the road in the postseason. It's not like they've struggled.
Right.
But it would be fascinating if it's 1-1 or even 1-0 Mavericks over the next few days.
Agreed, but both teams have been awesome in the last 3 minutes when games are coin flips. Both teams have been awesome on the roads. This is what you want, strength on strength for the NBA Finals. It gets going Thursday night.
Sure.
Brian Windhorst, blast as always to talk with you, my friend.
Thanks, Scott.